let's get to the co-main event here. No idea why this is the co-main event, considering all the other fights that we have on this card. I'd probably even take Derek Minner and Charles Rosa as a co-main event over this one. No shade at Caitlin Vieira here, but we got Caitlin Vieira going up against Yana Kunitskaya. It's a lot of chalk here on Vieira, which is usually the MO in most of her fights. Minus 265 for her, plus 225 for Yana. Now, Yana's approach in his last couple fights seems to just be go up there and just try to grind on your opponents, right? Like the Yulia Stoliarenko fight. I think that's the first time I've ever seen somebody like go up and just clinch an opponent up against the cage, and then the opponent who's being clinched trying to drop down, and the other opponent just trying to hold them up so they can continue to just clinch fuck them. Because more often than not, you see when people are in that position, the ultimate goal is to get this person to the ground so they can do more damage. But Yana was like, I want none of the ground game from Yulia, who's like the Lithuanian Ronda Rousey, getting all these armbar victories on her record. And then Yana's just like, I just want to pin you up against the cage and then dirty box you, land some knees, land some punches. And that's pretty much what she was able to do in that fight. She accrued a ton of control time in that fight. And she's able to get away with it against girls like, the Marion Renaults, even though in that fight she took a little bit more of a pick you apart from the outside and continuously moving type of approach. But most of her fights, she's trying to pin you up against the cage, try to control you as much as possible. I don't think that's going to work here against a strong girl in Caitlin Vieira, who's very good striking herself too. And I think that's where it's going to start to fall apart from Yana, is if she starts to engage in those clinches, I think she's going to lose those positions. We see the awareness from Vieira in terms of digging her underhooks when she's up against the cage, pushing her opponent back up against the cage, getting her own dirty boxing, dirty clinch game going, and then getting back to distance and really getting her strikes going. The last time we saw Vieira lose was to Irene Aldana, and that was a fight where I think it was just like the undefeated ego kind of just, catching up to her, where she's just throwing these wild strikes against Irene, who's way more sharper with the striking, way more technical. And unfortunately for Vieira, it caught up to her that night. Then we saw her come back and really put together a solid performance against Sijara Eubanks, just winning that fight all around. And I think that this is another solid fight for her to go out there and pretty much just outpoint Yana. I don't think she'll finish her. I think she'll be able to control her wherever this fight goes. I think she has the better jiu-jitsu as well too. I think Yana just has her work cut out a little bit. The line, for me, a little bit too wide, but I wouldn't mind parlaying it. But I think that we see Ketlin win this fight, and I think we see her win it via decision as well too. If you want to take the over 2.5, minus 320, that's a little bit too chalky for my liking. But Vieira to win by decision, minus 120. So you turn a minus 265 into a minus 120. That's probably her path to victory here, and that's the way that I'm going. So I got Vieira. How do you have this one?
You know what? I got to pass altogether. I don't like what I see to Ketlin Vieira. I think that she's making improvements. I think that grappling is the way to win this fight. But just keep in mind this, right? So UFC debut against Kelly Fashels. She wins a split decision. She was outstruck 44-13, but she had 4 takedowns over Kelly Fashels, right? Wins a split decision. That's her debut. The Ashley Evans-Smith fight, she narrowly won a striking battle 71-68. Close competitive fight against Ashley Evans-Smith, where Ashley Evans-Smith had a lot of spots. Then she has a Sarah McMahon fight. She loses the first round. She's losing the second round. She's outstruck 29-17 against Sarah McMahon, and then Sarah McMahon hands her the submission, which, as we've come to realize, is a Sarah McMahon characteristic. So far, she's defeated Kelly Fashels by split, got outstruck, didn't look good. Narrowly outstruck Ashley Evans-Smith, got the win, didn't look very good. Wins the Sarah McMahon fight, loses the first round, doesn't look overly good, got outstruck. Then she gets the Kat Zingano fight, where she proceeds to get outstruck 59-41, wins a split decision. A lot of people strongly disagree that she beat Kat Zingano in that spot, but ultimately, she does not look good. Then she fights Irene Aldana, where she gets knocked out in the first round. So it wasn't like, oh man, big upset. She was 4-0 in the UFC. She was kicking ass. She'd looked massively suspect for 4 fights in the UFC before fighting Irene Aldana, and then gets knocked out in the first round. So now I'm banking on her. She's going to get back in the win column. She takes on Sijara Eubanks, and she outstruck Eubanks. She's outstruck by Eubanks 69-68. She's effectively been outstruck by Kelly Fashels, Sarah McMahon, Kat Zingano, Irene Aldana, and Sijara Eubanks. 5 of her 6 UFC fights, she's been outstruck. But she relies on the takedowns, and that's what she's going to try to do here against Yana Kunitskaya. But the reason why I'm a little bit at least hesitant is Yana Kunitskaya has probably fought a little slightly better level of competition. She's fought for a UFC world title against Cyborg at 145 pounds. She's dating Thiago Santos, longtime Jackson Winklejohn member as well. She has the experience. You've seen in the Julia Stoliarenko fight where, yeah, Julia's so green and it's very, very, very awful, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
But you really do see where Kunitskaya is strong, especially in the clinch. She doesn't mind using output as well. Small knees, chip to the body. And so going back to Vieira and why she's getting outstruck, yeah, she's got really low numbers. Like, 17 landing against McMahon, 13 against Fashholtz, 20 against Aldana, though she got knocked down that spot. The Zingano fight, only 41. It was a 3-rounder. It's like she's really low output. Yana Kunitskaya, meanwhile, she doesn't have those issues. You look at her versus Marion Renault, it's a war, man. She lands nearly 100 significant strikes in that spot, and they go to battle. Her versus Aspen Ladd, she got knocked out. It only really made it 2 rounds, 33 seconds, 10 minutes and 33 seconds. So it's like, it's just early into the second round. But still to that point, she had landed 47 significant strikes, which is as much as Vieira's going to land on a whole fight, really, for the most part. Her versus Julia, entirely spent in the clinch, lower output number, but she didn't have to do anything. She just coasted and won all 3 rounds. I'm not saying I think she's going to win this fight. I'm saying Vieira minus 220. Like, what? No, I'm not in on that. So I take the fight to go the distance, but it's an awful price tag. Like, Bookie thinks it's going the distance as well. So if I was going to take Ketlen Vieira, I think I lean Ketlen Vieira by decision, which is minus 120, and it's still not good enough. I've seen somebody mention in the comment section, Vieira live for a submission. You know what? She does have a BJJ black belt. She does have a decent little submission game. This is women's MMA. I have been wrong in these spots. I mean, we seen last weekend, same thing. I was writing off a lackluster ground game once again, like I always do. And yeah, I mean, the armbar presents itself. Like, could I see a submission coming out of it? Yeah, but this is not my co-main event. I like a lot of spots better than I like this one. And I just think for the price, it's just off. Does Vieira win the fight more times than not? Probably. Is grappling the way she's going to get the job done? Yeah, I agree. When she's getting outstruck by all these people. But if she goes out there, fails to get the takedown, and is now forced to strike, we got a serious problem. And similar to where it was used as Zalal versus Choi a couple weeks ago, it's like, oh, Zalal's got this, he's got that. He's not overly physically strong. And if he doesn't get the fight to the ground, he doesn't have a striking to fall back on. Vieira, same thing last weekend. He's physically strong, he's got good grappling, but he's got no striking to fall back on. Like, that's my worry about Vieira, is that if she can't fall back on the striking, she absolutely needs to rely on the takedowns. And if those takedowns don't materialize, she's in for like one of these close split decision losses where everybody complains on Twitter that it's a robbery on both sides, but you bet it for 220 and you feel like an idiot deep down. So hit me with a pass on this one, baby.
Yeah, it could definitely play out a lot closer than the odds are indicating here. Before we move on to the main event, though, I do want to give a quick shout out to my guy Danny Legs in the chat, letting me know that Minner via round 1 sub is actually plus 1,000 on FanDuel. So if you guys have access to FanDuel and you think that has some value on it, that's the spot that you want to hit. I got the plus 350 from our good old buddies over there on Best Fight Odds. According to Bet Online, that's the line that they currently have for Minner via round 1 sub.